Captain Yoon stared out at the endless black space through the cracked viewport of his ship. The stars looked cold and distant, just like everything else in his life these days. His hands, thin and almost see-through like glass, trembled as he held the latest message from the Galactic Coalition. Rejected again, he whispered to himself. Behind him, his crew worked quietly at their stations. They were all Cathara like him. Their skin was pale and translucent, their bones visible beneath, like delicate crystal structures. Other species called them glass people when they thought the Cathara couldn't hear. Sometimes they said it when they could hear. Lieutenant Nal walked over to Yoon's chair. His face showed the same tired expression they all wore these days. "Sir, the Coalition says we can dock at Station 7 for supplies, but only for 6 hours, and we have to pay double the normal fees." Yoon closed his eyes and rubbed his forehead. Station 7 was in the worst part of the galaxy, where only criminals and outcasts went, but it was better than floating in space, with empty fuel tanks. "Set course for Station 7, he ordered. The Cathara had once been great. Yoon remembered the stories his grandfather told him about their beautiful homeworld, Kithion. Cities that floated among the clouds, powered by technology that could bend starlight itself. The Cathara had built wonders that made other species gasp in amazement. They were the engineers of the impossible, the scientists who turned dreams into reality. But that was before the Void Storm. Nobody knew what caused it. One day Kithion was there. The next day it was gone, not destroyed by war or disease or natural disaster, just gone, as if it had never existed at all. Only the Cathara, who were traveling in space at the time, survived. Now there were maybe 50,000 of them left in the entire galaxy. "Sir," called Engineer Vel from the back of the bridge. "The food processor is making that noise again. I think we need new parts. Add it to the list," Yoon said sadly. The list of things they needed was very long. The list of things they could afford was very short. The Coalition treated them like broken tools, useful sometimes, but not worth fixing when they broke. They gave the Cathara jobs maintaining computers and fixing machines, but they never let them build anything new. They never let them join the important meetings or make decisions about galactic affairs. "You're too fragile," the Coalition officials always said. "What if there's a fight? What if someone attacks? You can't defend yourselves." It was true that Cathara were not strong like other species. A human child could probably break Yoon's arm without trying very hard. But the Coalition didn't understand that strength came in many forms. The Cathara mind could solve problems that left other species confused for years. They could see patterns in chaos and find beauty in mathematics that others thought was impossible. But none of that mattered when you had no home and no voice. Captain Nal said quietly, "I've been thinking. Maybe we should consider the Hegemony's offer." Yoon's blood turned cold. The Hegemony was the Coalition's enemy, a group of military species that conquered worlds and enslaved weaker races. They had offered the Cathara protection in exchange for their technical skills. It would mean building weapons instead of wonders, but it would also mean survival. "Never," Yoon said firmly. "We may be homeless, but we're not slaves." "But sir, our people are dying. The overcrowded stations, the poor food, the stress. We lose someone every week. At this rate, there won't be any Cathara left in 10 years. Yoon knew Nal was right, but he couldn't give up hope. Somewhere in this vast galaxy, there had to be a place for his people. Somewhere, there had to be someone who could see past their fragile bodies to the strength of their minds and hearts. The communication system beeped. A new message was coming in from Coalition Command. Yoon opened it, expecting another rejection or another impossible demand for their services. Instead, he found something different. A mission. A real mission. Not just fixing broken equipment, or analyzing data that other species found boring. "What does it say?" Nal asked. Yoon read the message twice to make sure he understood it correctly. They want us to investigate an unknown signal from the outer spiral. System designation, Sol. They say it might be a new species. A new species. Engineer Vel looked up from her workstation. That's exciting. When was the last time anyone found a new species? Probably 100 years ago, Now replied. Then, his expression grew worried. But Captain, why are they sending us? This kind of mission usually goes to the Coalition's best ships, with their strongest crews. Why give it to us? Yoon understood what Now was really asking. First contact with unknown species could be dangerous. If something went wrong, if the new species was hostile, or if there were unexpected hazards, the mission ship might be lost. The Coalition was sending them because they didn't care if the Cathara ship came back or not. But Yoon smiled for the first time in months. Maybe that's exactly why we should go, he said. Set course for the Sol system. Maximum speed. As their ship turned toward the unknown, Yoon felt something he hadn't felt since Kithion disappeared. He felt hope. The blue planet hung in space like a precious jewel. Captain Yoon had seen thousands of worlds during his travels, but something about this one made his heart beat faster. 3 small moons danced around it, and even from this distance, he could see white clouds swirling over green and brown continents. Beautiful, whispered Lieutenant Now from beside him. The signal is definitely coming from the 3rd planet, reported Engineer Vel. It's artificial, Captain. Someone down there is trying to talk to the stars. Yoon felt excitement bubbling in his chest. A new species. After all the rejection and loneliness, maybe his people would be the ones to make this historic discovery. Maybe this would prove that the Cathara were still valuable to the galaxy. Send our report to Coalition Command, he ordered. Tell them we've found the source. The reply came faster than expected. Within 2 days, a massive Coalition fleet dropped out of hyperspace near their small ship. Yoon watched through his viewport as dozens of warships took positions around the unknown world. At the center of the fleet was the flagship of Ambassador Vex, a large reptilian creature who represented the Coalition's most powerful military species. Cathara vessel, came Vex's cold voice over the communication system. You will remain in orbit and provide technical support. We will handle the first contact procedures. Yoon wanted to argue, but he knew it would be useless. The Cathara had found this world, but they would not be allowed to make history. The first ships from the planet appeared 3 days later. They were small and crude compared to Coalition technology, using chemical rockets instead of proper space drives, but there was something elegant about their design, something that spoke of clever minds working with limited resources. Look at those primitive engines, laughed Vex during the command meeting that Yoon was allowed to watch but not participate in. These creatures barely know how to leave their own atmosphere. This will be simple. The lead ship from the planet sent a message in dozens of different languages. The translation computers worked for several minutes before producing a result. Greetings from Earth, the message said. We come in peace, seeking friendship among the stars. We are humans, and we welcome you to our system. Ambassador Vex made a sound that might have been laughter. Humans, another weak species that thinks the galaxy owes them respect. Send them the standard colonization package. Tell them they can serve the Coalition as laborers if they behave. But Yoon was watching the human ships more carefully. There were 5 of them, and he noticed something interesting. Each ship was different from the others, not just in size, but in design, philosophy. It was as if multiple groups had worked separately to solve the same problem, then combined their efforts. The largest human ship requested permission to dock with the Coalition flagship. After much discussion, Vex agreed to meet with their representatives. Admiral Park stepped onto the Coalition ship wearing a simple blue uniform with strange symbols on the shoulders. He was tall for his species, with dark hair and calm eyes that seemed to miss nothing. Behind him walked Dr. Kim, a smaller human with quick movements and an expression of intense curiosity. "We welcome you to Earth's system," Admiral Parks said, through the translation device. "Our world has much to learn from the galaxy, but we hope we might have something to offer in return." Vex towered over the humans, his scales glittering under the ship's lights. "Your species is barely capable of space travel. What could you possibly offer the Coalition?" Dr. Kim stepped forward, her eyes bright with interest. "May I ask about your ship's power systems? The energy patterns are fascinating. I've never seen quantum matrices arranged quite like this." Several Coalition officers laughed, but Yoon noticed something they missed. Dr. Kim wasn't asking random questions. She was studying their technology with the same focused intensity he recognized in Kithara scientists. In just a few minutes of observation, she had identified their most advanced systems. "Your species shows potential for technical work," Vex said dismissively. "We can offer you protection in exchange for labor. Your people can maintain our equipment and serve our colonies." Admiral Park's expression didn't change, but Yoon saw his hands tighten slightly. "We appreciate your offer, but Earth prefers partnerships to servitude. Perhaps we could discuss mutual cooperation instead." "Cooperation?" Vex's laugh was harsh and cold. "You've been in space for what, a few decades? The Coalition has ruled the galaxy for millennia. You have nothing we need." The meeting ended badly. The humans returned to their ships, and Vex began preparing occupation forces. It was the same story Yoon had seen dozens of times. A new species would be discovered, evaluated, and either enslaved or destroyed, depending on their usefulness. But, that night, Yoon received an unexpected message on a private channel. It was from Dr. Kim. "Captain Yoon, of the Kithara," the message said. "I noticed you during the meeting. Your people built some of the systems on the Coalition ships, didn't you? The quantum matrices have your signature style. I'd like to learn more about your engineering methods, if you're willing to share." Yoon stared at the message in amazement. In all his years dealing with other species, no one had ever asked to learn from the Kithara. They only wanted the Kithara to fix things or build things for them. He sent back a simple reply. "I would be honored to share our knowledge with someone who appreciates its beauty." Over the following days, Yoon and Dr. Kim exchanged technical information. She was brilliant, able to understand complex Kithara theories that usually took other species years to grasp. But more than that, she treated him as an equal, not as a servant or a curiosity. "Your people are remarkable," she told him during one conversation. "Why does the Coalition treat you so poorly?" For the first time in years, Yoon found himself talking honestly about his people's situation. Dr. Kim listened without judgment, asking thoughtful questions that showed she understood the deeper problems. "Maybe," she said finally, "it's time the outcasts found each other." The attack came without warning. Captain Yoon was reviewing Dr. Kim's latest technical notes when the emergency alarms screamed through his ship. On the main screen, he watched in horror as bright flashes erupted across the Kithara colony of New Haven. "Captain, engineer," Vel's voice cracked with panic. "It's the hegemony. They're attacking all the outer settlements." Yoon's hands shook as he watched the plasma bombardment tear through the fragile domes where his people lived. Thousands of Kithara were dying in the flames, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. The Coalition's response was swift and predictable. "We are monitoring the situation," announced Ambassador Vex during an emergency broadcast. "All Coalition forces will withdraw to defensive positions around core worlds. Outer settlements are considered expendable." Expendable. The word hit Yoon like a physical blow. His people had always known they were not valued by the Coalition, but to hear it said so openly felt like another kind of death. "Sir," Lieutenant Nal said quietly, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth." Admiral Park's face appeared on the screen, his expression serious but determined. "Captain Yoon, We've heard about the attacks on your people. The Earth Defense Council has voted unanimously. We're coming to help." Before Yoon could respond, Ambassador Vex's image pushed Parks aside. The reptilian's face was twisted with what might have been amusement. "Humans, you primitives think you can challenge the hegemony. Your entire fleet couldn't handle one of their destroyer squadrons." "Maybe not," Admiral Park replied calmly, "but we're going to try anyway. No one should face extinction alone." Vex's laughter echoed through the communication system. "This should be entertaining. The galaxy's two most useless species joining forces. The hegemony will crush you both and save us the trouble." 3 days later, the human fleet arrived at the burning remains of New Haven, but these were not the same crude ships that had first visited the Coalition. Yoon stared in amazement at vessels that seemed to blend human engineering with something else, something familiar. "Captain Yoon," came Captain Lee's voice from the lead destroyer. "We've been studying your people's work. Dr. Kim helped us understand your quantum matrix designs. We hope you don't mind that we borrowed some of your ideas." Mind, Yoon felt tears forming in his crystal blue eyes. For the first time in decades, someone had not just taken Cathara technology. They had learned from it, improved upon it, and asked permission to use it. The human ships were incredible to watch in battle. Captain Lee commanded the destroyer Seoul with tactics that made no sense according to Coalition military doctrine. She used cargo ships as missile platforms, turned mining equipment into siege weapons, and coordinated her fleet with a creativity that bordered on chaos. But it was chaos that worked. "Cathara vessels," Lee's voice came over the battle communications. "We need your help. Can your people coordinate our weapons systems? We have the firepower, but we need your precision to make it count." Yoon felt his heart racing. Not orders, not commands. A request for partnership. "All Cathara ships," he broadcast, "link your targeting systems with the human fleet. Show them what precision looks like." The result was beautiful and terrible. Human weapons guided by Cathara calculations struck with accuracy that the hegemony had never faced before. Their massive warships, designed to overwhelm enemies with brute force, found themselves picked apart by surgical strikes that hit exactly where they were most vulnerable. But the real surprise came when Colonel Nam's voice crackled over the communications system. "All ships, we're detecting hegemony reinforcements incoming. Looks like they're bringing friends." "How many?" Admiral Park asked. "Enough to outnumber us 10-1, Nam replied. Then, incredibly, he laughed. "Good thing we brought friends." 2. The space around New Haven suddenly filled with ships that Yoon had never expected to see. Aquatic vessels from the Valtai, crystal formations that could only be moored in silicon ships, and dozens of other craft from species that the Coalition had dismissed as unimportant. "This is Commander Song of the Busan," came a new voice. "All Allied vessels, remember what we're fighting for. Not territory or glory, but the right of every species to exist with dignity." Dr. Kim's voice joined the channel from her research ship. "Cathara friends, we've been working on something special. Can your people help us coordinate a synchronized attack? We think we can turn their own weapons against them." The battle that followed became legend. Human creativity combined with precision and the unique abilities of dozens of other species created a fighting force unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Valtai used their natural swimming motions to navigate through space in patterns that confused enemy targeting systems. The Morden, who were made of living crystal, absorbed energy weapons and reflected them back at their attackers. When the dust settled, the hegemony fleet was in full retreat. For the first time in their history, they had been defeated, not by superior numbers or better technology, but by cooperation between species they had considered weak. "Captain Yoon," Admiral Park said, as the human and Cathara ships regrouped, "my government has a proposal. Earth would like to offer formal alliance to your people, not as servants or protected assets, but as equal partners." Yoon looked around at the mixed fleet of ships from dozens of worlds, all species that had been laughed at or ignored by the major powers. Admiral Park, he replied, I think my people would be honored to stand beside yours. As reports of the victory spread across the galaxy, something unprecedented began to happen. Other lesser species started reaching out, asking if they too could join this new alliance of the underestimated. The universe had been laughing at them all, but now, finally, they were learning to laugh back. 6 months after the battle at New Haven, the war had spread across half the galaxy. Captain Yoon stood in the combined command center aboard the human ship Busan, watching tactical displays that would have been impossible just a year ago. Human engineers worked side by side with Cathara scientists, their conversations a mix of excited technical discussions and shared laughter. The quantum resonance cascade is working perfectly, Dr. Kim reported, her fingers dancing across a control panel that combined human interface design with Cathara processing power. We can now coordinate fleet movements across 12 star systems simultaneously. Beside her, Engineer Vel nodded enthusiastically, and the human's adaptive shielding concept is incredible. Instead of trying to block everything, we redirect the energy into our own weapons systems. It's so simple, yet none of us thought of it before. Admiral Park studied the strategic map with Commander Song and Captain Yoon. Red markers showed hegemony positions, while blue indicated the growing Alliance fleet. But what made Yoon's heart sing were all the other colors: green for Voltai aquatic forces, gold for Morden crystal ships, purple for the insectoid Zektar, and dozens more. Intelligence reports that the hegemony is getting desperate, Admiral Park said. They're pulling forces from conquered worlds to mass for a major offensive. Where will they strike? Asked Commander Song. The answer came from an unexpected source. Captain Tech of the Zektar High Fleet clicked his mandibles in what Yoon had learned was their equivalent of grim humor. They will attack the Coalition core worlds, force us to choose between helping our former oppressors or watching the galaxy burn. It was a clever strategy. The Coalition had treated all of them poorly, but they weren't evil like the hegemony. If the core worlds fell, billions of innocent beings would die. We have to help them, said Dr. Kim quietly. Even after everything they've done to our peoples, the Coalition abandoned us, Lieutenant Nal pointed out. They called us expendable. Why should we risk our lives for them? Admiral Park was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke in the calm voice that had come to represent their alliance's values. Because we're not fighting to be like them, we're fighting to be better than them. The decision was made. The Allied fleet would defend the Coalition core worlds, even though those same worlds had rejected and mistreated them for years. 3 days later, they received a desperate transmission from Coalition Command. Ambassador Vex appeared on screen, his scales dulled with exhaustion and fear. Human Admiral Park, he said, and Yoon noticed he didn't use any of his usual insults. The hegemony fleet is approaching our capital system. Our defenses are not sufficient. We request your assistance. It must have been painful for Vex to make that request. The same beings he had called primitives and weaklings were now his only hope for survival. We'll be there, Admiral Park replied. Simply. The Battle of Kethmoran lasted 18 hours and changed the course of galactic history. Yoon commanded the Silent Hope alongside Captain Lee's destroyer Soul, their ships working in perfect coordination. Cathara precision-guided human missiles, while human creativity found ways to use Voltai swimming techniques in space combat. Enemy dreadnought closing on Coalition flagship, reported Engineer Vel. Their shields are down to 30%. I have an idea, said Dr. Kim from her station. What if we use the Morden crystal resonance to create a harmonic feedback loop in their shield generators? It was a wild theory that should have taken months to test. But Captain Sill of the Morden fleet was already moving his crystal ships into position. We understand, Dr. Kim. beginning resonance pattern now. The hegemony dreadnought's shields flickered and failed as the Morden ships sang their crystal song. Human torpedoes and Cathara energy beams struck the exposed hull simultaneously, and the massive warship broke apart in a spectacular explosion. "Impossible," whispered a coalition officer on the communication channel. "How did you coordinate that attack so quickly?" "We trust each other," replied Commander Song. "It makes everything faster." As the battle continued, more coalition officers began to understand what they were witnessing. This wasn't just military cooperation. It was something deeper. Species that had been dismissed and ignored were showing the galaxy what was possible when different strengths worked together instead of competing. The turning point came when Hegemony's Supreme Admiral Keck himself entered the battle aboard his massive command ship. The vessel was larger than most space stations, armed with weapons that could destroy planets. "All Allied ships, this is Admiral Park," came the calm voice that had become the symbol of their cause. "That ship is their key commander. If we can disable it, the entire Hegemony fleet will lose coordination." "Sir," Captain Yoon transmitted back, "that ship has shields stronger than anything we've faced. Our weapons can't penetrate them." "Then we don't go through them," replied Dr. Kim. "We go under them, over them, and around them. Everyone ready?" What followed was the most complex space battle in galactic history. Valtai ships dove and weaved like schools of fish, drawing enemy fire, while Zektar fighters swarmed in coordinated patterns. Morden crystal ships absorbed massive energy blasts and redirected them at other targets. Human vessels used unpredictable tactics that confused enemy computers. And through it all, Kithara precision guided every shot, every movement, every coordinated strike. When Admiral Keck's command ship finally surrendered, the entire Hegemony fleet followed suit. The galaxy's greatest military power had been defeated by an alliance of species they had considered beneath notice. Ambassador Vex approached Admiral Park after the battle, his expression humble for the first time anyone could remember. "How?" he asked. "How did you achieve what our greatest generals could not?" Admiral Park looked at the mixed fleet around them, human ships beside Cathara vessels, all the species that had found strength in their differences. "We listened to each other," he said simply. "You should try it sometime." The coalition capital burned in space as Captain Yoon watched from the bridge of his ship. Massive Hegemony dreadnoughts surrounded the ancient world, where galactic law had been written for 1,000 years. This was supposed to be impossible. The coalition's core worlds were the most protected places in the galaxy, but the Hegemony had learned from their defeats. They had built new weapons, recruited new allies, and launched one final desperate attack to crush both the coalition and the growing alliance of lesser species. "Captain," Engineer Vel reported, her voice tight with worry. "Coalition Command is requesting immediate assistance. They're saying their government will fall within hours if we don't help." Lieutenant Nal turned from his station. "Sir, should we remind them how they treated us when we needed help?" Yoon understood the anger in his officer's voice. These were the same people who had called the Cathara expendable, who had laughed when humans offered partnership, who had dismissed every species in their alliance as worthless. But then Admiral Park's voice came over the communication system, calm as always. "All Allied vessels, this is Admiral Park aboard the Soul Victory. I know what you're all thinking. The Coalition never helped us when we needed it. But look around you. See those ships burning. There are families on those stations. Children who never chose to be part of this war." General O, the human fleet commander, appeared on the shared tactical display. His weathered face showed the strain of months of constant fighting. "We're not doing this for the coalition leaders who rejected us. We're doing this because it's right. Because when this war is over, we want to build something better than what came before." Dr. Kim's voice joined the conversation from her research vessel. "I've been analyzing the Hegemony attack patterns. They're using concentrated plasma bombardments to destroy entire city districts at once. If we don't stop them soon, Billions will die. That decided it. Admiral Yoon, of the Kithara Defense Fleet, his new title still felt strange, gave the order that would change everything. All Kithara ships, prepare for combat. We fight not for the coalition, but for the innocent lives they've put at risk. The final battle of the war was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The combined Alliance fleet dropped out of hyperspace like an avenging storm. Human destroyers led the charge, their hulls decorated with symbols from dozens of worlds. Behind them came Kithara, science vessels that had been converted into precision strike platforms. The aquatic Voltai swam through space in formations that looked like living art, while Morden crystal ships sang harmonious battle songs that disrupted enemy communications. Captain Lee commanded the human vanguard from her flagship engine. All ships, remember our training. The hegemony expects us to fight like them, all brute force and simple tactics. Show them what happens when different minds work together. The hegemony's Supreme Commander Thakros had prepared for this moment. His forces outnumbered the Alliance fleet 3-1, and his weapons were more powerful than anything the Coalition had ever faced. But as the battle began, he quickly realized he was fighting an enemy he didn't understand. Human ships charged, through seemingly impossible odds, but they weren't being reckless. Every dangerous maneuver was calculated by Kithara tactical computers. When hegemony forces tried to surround isolated human vessels, Voltai swimmers would appear from unexpected angles, their bioships spitting acid that dissolved enemy armor. What are they doing? Thakros demanded from his command ship. Their movements make no sense. How can they coordinate so many different species? His intelligence officer studied the scanner readings with growing confusion. Sir, it appears they're sharing tactical data in real time across their entire fleet. Every ship knows what every other ship is doing, instantly. Impossible, Thakros growled. No communication system could handle that much information. But Dr. Kim had solved that problem months ago, working with Kithara engineer Veltar. They had created a quantum communication network that linked every allied ship's computer system. It wasn't just information sharing, it was like having one giant mind controlling thousands of ships. The breakthrough came when the Morden crystal ships began their final song. The living crystal beings had discovered they could use their natural resonance abilities to overload hegemony shield generators. As their haunting music filled space, enemy defenses began to fail across the entire fleet. Now, shouted Commander Song from the Busan, all ships, concentrate fire on the command vessel. Thousands of weapons fired as one. Human missiles guided by Kithara precision, Voltai acid strikes that ate through armor, sector fighters that swarmed like angry insects, and dozens of other attack methods from species the hegemony had never bothered to study. Thakros' mighty command ship, designed to be unsinkable, began to break apart under the coordinated assault. Impossible, the Supreme Commander whispered as his bridge filled with smoke. How did weak species defeat the hegemony? The answer came from Admiral Park as he accepted Thakros' surrender aboard the Soul Victory. You saw weakness where there was different strength. We saw potential where you saw problems. 6 months later, the new Galactic Assembly met for the first time. The meeting place was symbolic. New Kithara, a world rebuilt from nothing using human engineering and Kithara science working together. Admiral Yoon stood beside Admiral Park as representatives from over 100 worlds took their seats. For the first time in galactic history, every species had an equal vote. Regardless of military power or economic influence, Dr. Kim approached them with her latest report. The integration programs are working beyond our best predictions. We've developed 17 new technologies through interspecies cooperation, established 43 new trade partnerships, and ... She paused, smiling. And the former coalition worlds are asking to join our alliance. All of them. Admiral Park looked out at the assembly hall, where beings who had once been enemies now worked together to solve problems that affected them all. What do you think, Yoon? ready to welcome our former oppressors as equals. Admiral Yoon's translucent features showed the first genuine happiness he had felt since losing his homeworld. I think, my friend, that the universe has finally learned to laugh with us instead of at us. The new galaxy they were building would not be perfect. There would still be conflicts and disagreements, but for the first time in galactic history, those conflicts would be solved through cooperation rather than conquest. The age of the strong ruling the weak was over. The age of mutual respect had begun.